So we're here for the next 45 minutes, and we're going to talk about the employer value proposition. And Landis asked me coming in, what's my little nugget with respect to the employer value proposition? And I truly believe, with respect to our retention strategy, the employer value proposition is our foundation. So if you can get anything right out of the start with respect to a great foundation, get it with your value proposition. So I believe that's our starting point, and then you build everything on that. And, you know, I always like to reflect on cartoons, and I think with this, what this really speaks to me is, there's lots of things that affect our retention strategy, but I think if we can get our value proposition right, but not only get our value proposition right, but make sure that we're walking the talk with respect to the value proposition, we can have a better chance of keeping our people and not having to chain them to the desk to keep them 2 or 3 years. So I'm happy to be here speaking to you about that value proposition. So, back in the day, 2007, 2008, I remember that recession. And I remember doing business in that recession, and I remember our clients in that recession. And I also know many of the high achievers back in 2007, 2008 were actively looking for work. And according to the statistics, when we looked back, 12% of them said that they were actively searching for jobs. And why do you think that is? In a recession, people say, especially your high performers, that they're going to actively look for work. Why do you think that might be?
Recognition.
Recognition, yeah. What about recognition? They just weren't getting it, probably, right? Well, especially when times are tough, the way we treat our people watch, right? And so if we don't treat them well, they're going to walk when things get good. So that's why it's so important for us to pay attention to what I'm going to talk to you about is that value proposition. And right now, because here we are again, we're back with the recession, right? And how we treat our best people will be an indicator of whether or not we're going to be able to keep them when things turn around. So we should never underestimate the importance of this value proposition. And that's why I like to think that it's a foundational piece. So, and I think the thing with the value proposition, it's not only about defining it and calling it out and saying, yes, this is how we're different, this is why we're different. It's making sure that we're doing what we say we're doing in order to be different. So it's that walking the talk, because otherwise it's just words on a page, and it's really, people remember what they see, and they remember what they hear, and they remember actions. And we can never underestimate the actions of the leaders in our organization too. So it really starts from the top, and making sure that as we define our value proposition, we're working with the leaders and making sure that they believe it as well, because they're the ones that people watch, our managers, and that's the walking the talk bit. So it's much more than just putting words on a piece of paper. And the thing with calling out our value proposition too, we always have to remember that it's not one size fits all. Back in the day, I've been around for a long time. I've been practicing HR for over 20 years. And back in the day, 10 years ago, it was about one size fits all. You know, we did talk about consistency and the importance of policy and procedure manuals where everybody's treated the same. Honestly, that's not what happens nowadays. It's not so much about one size fits all. It's about, and especially with their value proposition, it's what's important to our high performers and making sure that you're paying attention to that. And sometimes that doesn't seem always fair, or how fair can that be? But that's the reality of the business that we work in today. And what we need to be paying attention to in our value proposition is what attracts and retains our very best people. and making sure that we're creating definition around that. I mean, it's got to be true to ourselves as an organization too. Like, it's got to be good for us as owners, but if we're not paying attention to what attracts and retains our best, we're probably missing the boat. So unfortunately, it's not about one size fits all. It's about what works for your organization in order to attract the talent that you need and to keep the talent that you need in order to be successful. So the value proposition is all about your brand. And often, as HR professionals, we go into an organization. I find when I'm asked to go in and work on a value proposition piece with an organization, the best time to come in is when the marketing people are trying to define what the employment brand is, right? Because it really should be the same. So the messages that you're giving your employee with respect to what's important to us as an organization is the same messaging that you're giving to the community when you're talking to them about your organization. So really consistent messaging, and it's about your employment brand. What are you all about? What do you stand for? And that's both intrinsic and extrinsic. So it's about your compensation. It's about how you treat people. It's about everything that touches and feels as your organization. The minute you walk in, how does it feel? I often say when I go into an organization and I go up to the reception desk, I can feel their value proposition just walking in, right? I can tell what kind of organization they are just by the feel of how I'm received, whether I hear a lot of chatter, or, you know, I can just feel it. And that's the value proposition. That's a piece of the value proposition, which is a very important piece. It is too about your comp and your benefits, but it's also about the look and feel of your organization. And it's the total sum of everything. So again, that's why the messaging is really important. If you've got an employment brand, make sure that as you're talking to your leaders about the value proposition, you're paying attention to what the branding is that you're using when you talk to the community, because you'll want to make sure that that's consistent messaging. Can I just ask here, how many of you in your organization spend money and time on your employment brand? Okay. And do you talk about value proposition at the same time, or is it separate?
I guess it would be included.
Yeah, right. But with you guys, yeah. And sometimes organizations don't see the congruity there, right? But you spend a lot of money on your brand, right? And so if you can bring that into your recruitment strategy, how great is that with showing alignment with your business, right? And that's what we really want to strive for, is that alignment piece. So, honestly, that speaks to your leaders too, because if you're spending money on the employment brand, finding a way to bring that into your recruitment strategy will speak kudos to the work that you do as HR professionals or as people professionals within your organizations, because your leaders want to see that alignment and that congruency. So find a way to bring it into the value proposition and to your recruitment strategy. It helps us hold ourselves accountable to the bottom line. You know, often, sometimes as HR practitioners, we're criticized because we don't pay attention to the bottom line. By creating alignment of your employment brand and your value proposition, that's how we add value to the bottom line. And we're not sort of off doing our own thing. We're creating alignment in the business. And that's truly what we want to do. And that's why I like to think that our value proposition is a foundational piece. Truly a foundational piece. Okay, there's coffee here. Shall we wait? Do you want to grab a coffee? Anybody? Do you? Yeah, grab a coffee. Why don't you grab a coffee?
Because we took that was I so liked her. We elected this when we were on the value of that division, so to this day, before we we're gonna post it, and then someone else will know, like, my friend is looking for a job, and we already talked to him about this girl, not really tired, but he didn't, part of it. So kind of just all these, like, she'll interview the workforce and things, which is cool, and that time for them, and then she wanted to get five, like, negotiate on that. She started. And then so I had two people leave on the 7th, and then on the first week was last Tuesday, and then, yeah. And I had another job as well.
Okay. So the value proposition does help us attract and retain our best people, our good people. Our value proposition, and I really, it's what is it about our organization that sets us apart? What makes us different? What makes us unique? What makes us unique from the competition, right? That's our value proposition. Whether it's how we pay our people, how we value our people, or just about how we go about doing our business. Thinking about all of those things. What is that uniqueness about us? And I like value proposition because once we've defined it and we've helped an organization define it, we can go in and measure it, right? We can say, okay, and how are we doing? So it allows the leaders in the organization, our management team, to actually measure against something, right? So getting really clear on that value proposition is really, really important because then it'll help you measure. And also, it will help you determine what should we be doing with respect to our people, programs, and processes? So if you do a good job of defining it, then when it when you have to make decisions about your policies, whether you have to make decisions about your comp program or your benefit program, if you've clearly defined your value proposition, you can sort of look back and it'll help you make choices. So that's why I like to do the value proposition as an upfront piece, because then it's a check and a balance. So again, the reason why it's a foundational piece. So just a statistic, again, that dates us a little bit back to 2014, but again, in 2015, where it says 73% of CEOs reported being concerned about the availability of key skills. And you know, it was really interesting when we started our business way back 10 years ago. I worked on a really important piece with the McKinsey Group on labor shortages in the oil sands. And we were talking about, 20 years out, right? And here we are in a recession. And we think, well, how important is this? The talent, the war on talent and the shortage of talent has not gone away. It's still there. And sometimes we don't see it when we're in a recession, but it still is there. And when we see a statistic like this, we say it truly is there. So that's why this is really, really important for us to pay attention to value proposition, because it's not, and as Adam pointed out today, it's not compensation that's going to allow us to attract and keep our best people. As long as we're paying people fairly, that usually doesn't even appear on the table, right? But how we treat people and why the experience that we create for people when they come and work for us, it's that which will keep our best people. So again, really, really important work on trying to define that and then leveraging it. Because as this statistics points out, our leaders are worried about it. And what we know is that we want to make sure we're paying attention to our leaders and what's keeping them awake at night. So this is important stuff for them, right? So it's positioning the great work that we do from our profession to say, yes, this does matter and this is why. Let's talk a little bit about Starbucks and what their employer value proposition is. A couple of years ago when I actually started talking and working with our clients about value propositions, I reflected on Starbucks because I went into Starbucks one day and I had to wait in a huge lineup to get my coffee. And I'm going, why are people doing this? Why are people waiting like half an hour to get, because the lineup was out, it was on the main mall in downtown Calgary, 7th Avenue Mall. And honestly, I think I waited at least 20 minutes to get my coffee. And I just thought, why am I doing this? This isn't a good fit for me, actually, because I was late and I did want a coffee though, so I ended up going to Starbucks. And I came out of that and I actually went onto their website and sort of took a look at what is their promise, what is their value proposition. And what do you think I found when I looked up Starbucks? What's their value proposition? What do you think it would be at Starbucks?
Great service.
Great service. Fast?
Yeah.
Not fast, it wasn't. No, that wasn't what they promised. It is. It's about their experience. In fact, they openly say, if you want a quick cup of coffee, you probably should go. Probably shouldn't go there, right? Because that's not what they're all about. It's about the experience. It's about their I don't even know. They've got a name for the people that serve the customer. Baristas, yeah. Talking about the bean, where the bean came from, the exact bean that's best for you. And so that's their whole value proposition is about creating that wonderful experience for their customers when they go and buy a coffee. It's not about a fast coffee. And I'm going, okay, I get it now, right? That's their branding. That's what they're all about. It's not a good place for somebody like me to go to when I want a quick coffee. And they're completely okay with that. And that's the way they train their people. That's the way they get people to stay with them, because they want people working for them that are passionate about talking to the customer about the bean, where it came from, how it was, nurtured before it actually went into their coffee grinders. That's what they want, and that's what they hire for, and that's consistent with the brand that they put out there, and that's what they put on their website. So I started to get it with respect to the value proposition. And that's why also at Starbucks, it's about learning and development too. They develop their people, whether it's developing them to learn about their coffee bean or it's developing them to be great managers, right? That is the Starbucks experience. And when you go in and look at their website, then you see, my gosh, they walk the talk and they target their messaging. And that's the true value of a value proposition, because it's working for them in the community, and it's also working for them as they attract and retain their people. So I liked it. So I put it up here. And it may be dated a little. They may have evolved it, which we tend to do in the value proposition. But when I did my research, that was all about. And, what struck me here, it's about that development piece. It's about career development. It's about, the work environment, the culture. It's not rushed at Starbucks, right? Like, you just don't go there for a rushed experience. You really don't. I mean, look at them. You can go in and work on your laptop for hours there, and they're completely okay with that, right? So they truly walk and talk their value proposition, not only in the community for the customer, but also for their staff. And that they've gotten it right with respect to their value proposition. So what are some other organizations that have that strong reputation and an employer value proposition that attracts and retains talent? People line up the door to work for you because of their value proposition. You mentioned one to me this morning. You said, gosh, who is it? Yeah, remember I was saying, we were talking about the culture, and you were saying this organization in the States has lines like
Pike's Place Fish Market. That's
exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. They have so what's their value proposition?
I don't know.
What do you think it is?
Well, it's about having fun at work.
Oh, it's about fun at work. It is. Yeah. It's about fun at work.
It's the fish philosophy.
Yeah. And they have people lining up as far as people wanting to work for them, just because it's a fun place to be, and that's the experience. Like, I've never been there. Has anybody been there?
The employees that actually created it, right?
Yes.
They asked, like, how can we make this more fun? Because we're getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning. We're working in the cold, wet, with stinky fish.
Yeah, like sticky fish.
How can we make this a better place to work? It was the employees that came up with having fun at work and throwing fish.
Right.
And so now that's attracted people. It's like a tourist attraction.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a tourist attraction. It's on the list of things to do when you go there.
Yeah. And so that's interesting that they actually asked the employees. Yeah.
Created it.
Right. So when we're thinking about our value proposition, what should we be doing? Yes, exactly. It's critical. It's critical. So actually, the first time I ever did a piece on value proposition was, as I said, the owner of the company was doing his marketing. They were doing the branding, right? The employment branding. And he said, Janet, I want to come in because we want to do this together. We want to do the value proposition as we define the employment, the branding out in the community. So I got to work with the employees and the owner on the value proposition, and then the marketing people did the brand, but it was my responsibility to sort of gather from their best people what it is that attracted and retained them and kept them there, right? But what was really interesting on that piece of work that I did with them is the owner, and he's been in business for a long time, he basically thought he had it with respect to what the value proposition was, right? And he was building the brand around that, right? What he thought were the values of the organization. Family-run values. They're a company of 250 employees. It was interesting that Adam said about 150 sort of have that breakaway between a family-based business. He was 250, but he really believed his business was about, engaging people, treating people very well, making sure that they were engaged in decision making, all of that. That's what he thought the value proposition was. That's why people came to work for him. That's what he thought. Anyways, when I went away and did my piece with the employees as to why they actually came and worked for him, what do you think I found out? Now, this would have been about 3 years ago. What do you think I found out? Yes, they did come and work for him because it was like a family. It was like their values. But another key reason why people came and worked with him was compensation. The pay did. You know what? He was overpaying.
Is that why they stayed, though?
Yeah, it was. Some of them did. I mean, they were also treated, they were treated well. But when we did the value proposition piece, yeah, they said, we basically come here because he pays well. And, whether that kept them there, probably not, because one of the things we know is that's not really a retention strategy. It was but they also said, it does feel like family here. But when I took it back to him and I said, okay, this is what I'm hearing, he said, oh my gosh, I had no idea, right? So making sure that you've got congruency with respect to, what do you as the leadership team, or in his case was the owner, what do I believe it is that is bringing people in? That's the way, how does that sit with my own values as an owner, right? Because that's an important piece of the value proposition. What am I communicating out to the community? Very important piece. That's your employment brand. But that very important piece as to, and why do my best people stay with us? Really piece. Because you want congruency on all of that. He changed his he started thinking about his compensation because of that piece of work. And because he certainly couldn't afford and can't afford, especially today, to be overpaying his people. So it was an important outcome. It was important aha that he found as we did that value proposition piece. So it was great. So what are other organizations that we know of that have a great employer value proposition? Google. Oh my gosh, Google. Yeah. Does anybody know people that work for Google? I know a person that works for Google, and that value proposition that we believe is exactly what she experiences. Fun.
Employees talk about it.
They do, yeah. That's an organization that's got a good value proposition and they're walking the talk. And you know that because you talk to the people that actually are working there. Yeah. Who else?
What about WestJet?
WestJet's another one that comes to my mind. Yeah, exactly.
Spotify as well.
Pardon?
Spotify.
Spotify?
Yeah,
Okay.
my cousin works for them out of New York. And,
So what's Spotify?
It's like Netflix, but for music. So you
Oh, okay.
have an app on your phone and you can listen to free music.
Okay.
Just pay your $8 a month.
Right. Okay. All right.
Are there any in Red Deer that just come to
Yeah.
Tell Janet and I, because we wouldn't be that familiar.
Well, I've heard of one.
Oh, have you?
Yeah, well, I mentioned it this morning. But I don't know. I've just heard, and I'm not sure. What about the Little Potato Company?
The Little Potato Company is in Red Deer.
Is it?
I don't know. Is that what, I'm asking the question.
I thought it was.
I don't know. I don't know the little potato company.
I thought, oh, maybe it's in Edmonton then. Okay, maybe it's in Edmonton. But I've heard they've got an interesting culture. But obviously, maybe I haven't heard properly because you guys don't know of them. So maybe it's Edmonton actually that they're located. So is there an organization in Red Deer that sort of speaks to you?
No.
Maybe it's your own organization. Pardon?
Nova Chemicals.
Nova Chemicals. Okay, yeah, that's probably a good one. Yeah. Stantec. Yeah. Let's talk about WestJet. What is it about WestJet? Because WestJet, you can sort of identify aspects of their recruitment strategy that speaks to their value proposition. So what is it about WestJet?
Their employees are owners. So
They're owners, exactly. So yeah.
that's why that's the first thing I think of.
Yeah, because that brings into and they bring in their compensation practices as part of their retention practice, which is part of the value proposition. It's the value, what's nice about the value proposition, it's everything, right? So it's not just about, the look and feel when you go into work. It's about the values. It's about the compensation. It's about the benefits. And that's why I like WestJet as an example, because and the work environment, yeah.
You just see like videos all over the place.
Yeah, and it looks like they have fun, yeah. I've seen some of their Christmas videos, they just really
You cry every time.
makes you cry every time. So yeah, an example. So an example. Oh, and also we used to have an employee that actually her husband was a pilot for WestJet, and just talking to her about how they also included her in some of their celebrations and things like that, right? So again, that's again part of the value proposition, how they position themselves in the community, because she was a great ambassador even of WestJet, right? So again,
it's either. I was struggling with a baby on one hip and pushing my luggage into the airport one day, and it ended up being a WestJet pilot that helped me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Right. So, that says to me, they've also done a great job of communicating to their people about what's important in their value proposition, about some of the messaging, right? Such that a pilot would say, "Can I help you?" Right? Because he's an owner.
Well, I just saw the WestJet name tag, and I was like, "Oh, what do you do for WestJet?" He's like, "Oh, and he said it really I'm a pilot." We got and he helped me all the way right to when I got rid of my bags, and we were in the elevator going up to departures. And one of the stewardesses came in and she goes, "Oh, you have a little boy. Is this your wife?" And she knew that he had a little boy. I'm like, "No, he's not."
You're off the street, literally.
But it was nice. But it was nice to see that they're they know about each other too, right?
That he kind of chat with.
So, that's really interesting, because what it says about WestJet too is they've done that really good job when they brought people in, right? To know when they've done their recruiting, to know that that's going to be a good match, because that may not have been a good experience for an employee. That not all potential employees can do that, right? Can be that engaging, can actually do what he just did as a pilot, right? So that they've done a really good job of bringing that into their recruitment strategies, right? And they've also done a really good job at communicating what's important with respect to their value proposition. So when we think about
out to customer service,
exactly,
right?
It touches everything. It's intertwined. It's intertwined. So if you take anything away from this session at all, it's got to be intertwined, right? This is not a piece that you can do on your own, right? You've got to have it aligned. It has to be a piece of it, and you have to work with everybody in your organization to get this piece right. And that's why I like to think that it's that foundational piece, right? It just goes out throughout your whole organization, and it's intertwined. So just to my point, the employer value proposition must equal the employee value proposition. So what I think as an owner, as a leader in my organization, I have what I think it is, but it needs to be exactly the same as what the employees are experiencing. I think for our company, one of the best, I sat back and I just reveled in this. 2 years ago, we won an award for our across Canada for the work that we were doing in HR. And part of that award was they brought in people on our team and they put them on camera and said, "What is it about your team that you like?" Right? And for me, what was really important in my organization, and I was wondering, oh my gosh, what are they going to say? Right? You don't know, right? Can we write that script? Because it goes live and you don't have any control. But when I started the company as a founder 10 years ago, it was a virtual model, right? Because we work across Canada, but we don't have people in every city. And being able to connect virtually is critical for our people, right? And being a part of a team that can connect virtually is crucial. So that was always what we were trying to build as we built the organization. And one of the consultants actually went on camera and said, without no prompting from anybody, what she liked most was the virtual team and the support that she got from the virtual team. And I thought that's living and feeling the value proposition, right? Because as an owner, you're trying to build that, right? And then for somebody just to unsolicited say that, I'm going, oh my gosh, how great does that feel?
Support.
Yeah, exactly. So, that is also making sure that you're clear on what it is you're trying to build then, and then you bring people into your organization as your retention strategy that's a good fit for them, right? Because that may not be a good fit for everybody, right? So experiencing that's truly what the value proposition and walking the talk, and it did feel very, very good. So the value proposition is something that can't be owned by human resources. It's not ours, it's the organization's. And that's why this piece, as a lot of the work that we do in HR, cannot be done in isolation, right? This piece in particular cannot be done in isolation. We need to be working with our leaders on it, and we can take a lead in helping define and develop it, but it's really got to be owned by everybody. And that alignment we've already talked about with the business strategy. And again, I want to talk a little about, as we've talked through this, about how do we measure it, and we will get to that as well. But when you actually start so when you're thinking, and if you want to leave here and say, okay, we probably should be doing a piece on our value proposition, how do we get started, right? It really starts with that strategy and that business plan. So talking to your leaders about that, and making sure that you truly understand it with respect to where is the organization going and what is the talent, what are the behaviors, what are the values that you need to bring into the organization in order to land that strategy piece, right? And then again, a second piece to that. So you think you get that right with the leaders, you've defined what that looks like, and then going through and going back then and checking with your people. And when you check with your people, you are checking with your A players, as Adam pointed out. It's your best. That's who you want to hear from here. It's not your C players or even your B players. It's your A players that you want to hear from. And then again, you got to make sure you're developing the messaging around that brand. So everything that you touch from, if you're looking from your people programs, that's your recruitment strategies, the messaging that you're giving, your compensation messaging that you're giving. Everything that you do and communicate needs to be consistent with respect to those that definition of this is who we are and what we're all about, and deliver the message consistently. So let me just ask then, if, for example, you're an organization that strives to be open door policy, everybody says they got an open door policy, right? We're different because we've got, few layers to the top. Talk to the CEO or have access to the CEO. When you're thinking of your recruitment strategy then, what type of behaviors are you recruiting for? When if that's truly who you are and what you consider your value proposition. When you recruit people, what are you going to be recruiting for? Who's it going to be a good match?
Like open communication, somebody who also demonstrates that they're not like high on their horse.
Exactly.
Right? They're very
They're not all about power. They're not about, power, about organizations. Exactly, right. Yeah.
Like the pilot.
Like the pilot, yeah. It's not about positioning. Yeah. So that's where your value proposition, you've defined it. Well, okay, a lot of organizations say that. What does it truly mean? And then how is it impacting the decisions you make when you bring people into the organization? That's how it filters down, right? Because that's not a good match for everybody, right? And the other thing is we've got up to 4 generations in our workplace right now, right? 4 or 5, actually.
Yeah.
And so that type of work environment doesn't suit maybe every generation, right? My generation tends to be more hierarchical, right? Like I struggle a little bit with this fact that the open door policy to the CEO, I have a hard time getting my head around that sometimes. Is that okay? Like is that truly a good thing? But, so again, if that's truly how you're defining yourself as part of your value proposition, what does that look like? What does that feel like? And then what are the types of people that you're bringing into your organization and keeping in your organization to make sure that actually is a reality and a good thing, not a bad thing. So yeah, it's just the importance of it filtering down and that consistency then. So how do you know you're walking your talk? So if you say I'm going to be one thing as an organization, that you're actually doing what you say you're going to do. Keep it simple. Survey your people. Ask them. With SurveyMonkey now in our workforce, we can send out a survey pretty quick to get a sense on how people are feeling in the organization. SurveyMonkey is inexpensive and it's easy to use, and we've worked with organizations that they'll send out a quick survey just to get a pulse, and if something's important to them. It's just become part of their culture and part of the way they ask people for input. So it doesn't.
Major seasons.
Yeah. Okay.
If you have any suggestions on how
Perfect.
we do it. Yeah, tax season, not so much. It actually, one of our large employee surveys actually hits right after tax season, unfortunately. But after we do campus recruiting, and so
right.
after we do that, we send out a survey, say, okay, how do we do this year? What can we do better next year?
Right. Perfect. Constantly. And that's a great way to get feedback. I mean, gone are the days where you have to hire somebody to do a big survey for you. I mean, you need to ask the right questions, but SurveyMonkey makes it pretty easy for you. So keep it easy. Monitor your retention statistics. And the thing is too, and again, it's not everything about everybody, right? Pay attention to your top performers, right? Because that's where you're going to get some very key messaging, right? So just to echo what Adam said today, it is about paying attention to that group. And again, conducting your exit interviews. In your packages, we've got a sample exit interview for you. So, that's a starting point. If you want to, utilize those exit questionnaires or customize them to make them fit, go ahead and do that. But also do your stay interviews. How many do stay interviews here? Okay, good. So when do you do a stay interview? At what point?
Well, we actually have it as part of quality management review.
Okay.
And so it's not us who do it for ourselves. Another HC department from another region will come and do it.
Oh, okay.
But it's part of a whole HC audit.
And but at what point do you do the stay interviews? How long people win with you?
It varies.
It varies. Okay. All right. And sorry, I didn't catch your name, but you do stay interviews, right? Surely. Yes. So when do you guys do it?
It varies depending on the department.
Okay. So would it be 3 months? Would it be a year?
Not at 3 months. I wouldn't have done that annually for someone.
Annually? Yeah. Okay. All right. Good.
We do an onboarding survey, actually.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's great. That's a really good idea. Yeah.
Onboarding, because our whole onboarding process is 3 to 6 months. So at the 3 month mark, everybody gets a SurveyMonkey on how their onboarding went, and then we're constantly tweaking it as well.
Perfect. Perfect. And I like that constantly tweaking. Sometimes we get too hung up on putting a process in place, owning it and saying, and by gosh, we got to keep it there for a while, right? Because we spent time developing it and things like that. No. If it's not working, fix it. So, and through SurveyMonkey, you can find out that fairly quickly, right?
And like you said, it's short.
It's short,
not a
yeah.
question.
Right, yeah.
What does a stay interview look like? What could it look like?
Basically, it could look like many of the questions you'll ask on your exit interview is what you're asking those questions while they're actually employed, which is exactly when you want to be asking them. By the time they've left, it's too late. So take a look at the exit interview questions and just ask similar questions, ask the same questions, but do it while they're employed. And again, this is just the importance, and we've already talked about it, about testing your value proposition, because you don't want to assume that you've got it right. You want to say, and is that what you're actually experiencing it? And that's the true value, I think, in defining it, because it actually allows us to develop a process to say, and are we doing what we said we were going to do with respect to creating that environment or creating those benefits that we believe are important? It allows us to go in and ask that question. Ask for feedback and then benchmark and measure against to improve. So one of the exercises that we do when we go and test our value proposition is we ask this question: how would you complete the following sentence? The ideal of our company is that every person who works here, and get your employees to finish that sentence for you, or to be a successful employee at our company, one must. And again, ask them to complete that sentence. And the way we've done this is in the past, we'll get a group of employees together, the higher performer employees, your AP employees, and we'll do focus groups and we'll ask them these questions. And it's the output from that that helps us define whether there's consistency with the employer, which tends to be your brand, and the employee, what they're actually experiencing. And then so can I just, why don't we, do we have enough time to just do a quick exercise? Okay, so can you just, at your tables, complete these sentences on your own company. The ideal at our company is that every person who works here, what is it? And to be a successful employee at our company, one must. And just share at your table.
I can start because an ideal company that every person works here as a team together is kind of the whole basis of everything that we have.
It must have really yanked up the heat. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, yeah. And just, yeah, I think so.
Everyone who works here wants to represent Red Deer. Yeah, exactly. Like, this is the only, some people when they come to Red Deer, this is like where they go. You represent our company, but you represent our city. So I want to be excited about your city, and that's like what we look for. It's like enthusiasm. Yeah. That's right. Yeah, that would be a little bit more harder sell.
What would MAP be? It's a little harder.
It's just what like we're definitely like open door policy. We're not too like big for our britches, like the regional managing partner.
I think teamwork is probably the most important
So I think like
really have to work together
and
and be willing to. See, right? I mean, it's new. It's just been. So what are you replacing? We don't know yet. Oh, okay. So.
One of the things that I always
there just is a stigma that's attached to that. There is, absolutely. And so we're more like a corporate store kind of level. Retail is attaches
and
itself.
So like we put a lot
So I would say teamwork is big on that. I'm really struggling. I feel kind of biased. My cousin owns the company, so I feel like an owner. So it's like I don't know if my answer is like fair.
Tell us your answer, because you can always go back and ask, is this what your experience is? Yeah.
It's nice to have a perspective from an owner. This has been a year of HR hell for me. Oh, no.
Can I tell you what I feel when I go into your company? Sure. I've worked with Reaction.
We built their website.
Oh, wow, okay.
I feel like it's very warm in here now.
Finally.
I've just asked them to turn it down, because it hit me. Oh my gosh, yeah.
Up and down.
I know. So Landis is checking the temperature.
I feel like like you guys have an open relationship with all of your staff. Like you could go in and your ideas are always met positively. Just in some of the meetings that I've been in, like everybody is so positive with each other within your organization.
Wow. So you can actually feel that, actually.
feel that.
Yeah, I agree.
Nice. You really
Yeah.
need to believe that ideas over egos. It doesn't matter what your position is or what your job title is. If you have a good idea, you need to say it because it's important to our clients.
That's
You don't say the good idea.
That's incredible for value proposition. Yeah.
And like, I imagine.
We want to get a sign and put it over one of our meeting
You
rooms,
actually
but
do have that.
Because if you can define that as a value proposition, you can actually go and measure that. Like, are people actually feeling that, right? And people will come and work for you because of that.
Like one of the best things that we.
I have people lining up to work for me.
It was me.
Oh, great. Okay. We'll have to move on because otherwise I'll get the hook.
Oh, that looks like fun, and we get people to apply all the time because they see that video.
Okay, so hopefully you've had some input at your table as to what, the value proposition might, and you've been able to speak it and to help start quantifying what it is. And then once you've done that, again, engaging your leaders at your organization, critical, and then going in and then asking people in your organization, is that what you're actually experiencing, is really, really important. Measuring, I just want to share a few slides with you to say, whatever we do, I think it's important that we measure. So what are some benchmarks you can look at to say, are we walking the talk? So you've defined the value proposition, you've asked people why they come and work for you, and then are you actually retaining them? And I really like for this exercise to zero in on the top quartile. Those are the ones you're really wanting, and needing to retain when you're looking at your value proposition, right? So I think that's an important benchmark. And you can get these benchmarks. So we actually look to the HR Management Association, and I know this is an old one, but they do update it, and you can get those benchmarks. So try to measure it. Make sure you're asking some good questions on the exit interview, and even apply those to stay interviews. And we've provided those for you in your handouts. Again, just to summarize, it's the value proposition, what it is that truly makes you different and unique, leveraging it so people will say, and it's because of that uniqueness that I want to come and work for you, and I will stay working for you. And be nimble, and as I said, always test your value proposition, and if it's not working, think about redefining it. Just a quote from the Business Journal I found. People are not and never have been exactly the same. They've got different needs. People are different and different motivations. And when you honor this reality, you will more likely be to honor each person for who they really are. You cannot lose by being fair. You can and will lose a lot by painting everyone the same. So again, just reinforcing the importance of calling out how you are different, right? And how that difference can actually work for you. And finding out from your people, what is it about different that they like? So again, as you leave here, think about, because I always think, we come to these workshops and where do we go, right? I'm a big believer that as you leave here, think about one or two things that you can take with you from here and say, yes, I can go in and start having a conversation and start doing things differently. So as you leave here, I'd really like you to think about the value proposition and what might you do differently in your workforce around value proposition that will help you start thinking about that attraction and retention of staff. And in summary, just the talent strategies requires you to have a good retention plan. Your value proposition is very much a part of that. I like to think that it is your foundation. It is your starting point. And again, don't forget, if we have a foundation, if we have anything that is of value, it's worth measuring, and the leaders in your organization will expect you to do that. So look to some measures that you can to say, is the value proposition working for us? And that's it. Thank you. There's information on, in your toolkit, you've got information in there on the exit questionnaire, and also a little bit about our organization and a program that we have for the not-for-profit sector. We also open up some of our programs to businesses as well as the not-for-profit sector, so if you're interested in learning more about us, please give us a call. And thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.